See you. Wow. So nice.
Accept our most humble obeisances.
Accept our obeisances. Adipurusha Prabhu, you look like you're coming from Gita Nagari with your overalls.
Is that an apron?
Is that apron? Okay, apron.
Hari Hari Bol. So as always, we're so honored and privileged to be able to come to the audience of Bhakti Center. This is special mercy from the devotees from the Bhakti Center, and we're deeply, deeply appreciative. We're just grateful to be able to offer some service, little service to Shri Radha Muralidhar. So as always, I read the verse and then Ekavira start with the class. So we'll start. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Let's start reading the verses. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 15, text number 24. Yeah, sorry, thank you. Tasmashan Narad Devaya Munir Arhanam Ahanrat Sasanyat Matya Vahaya Havishmatya Tapodanaha. Srila Prabhupada's translation. Well, let me do the word for word. Tasmai unto him Sahahi Jamadagni Naradevaya unto King Kartavirya Arjuna Munihi, the great sage, Arhanam, paraphernalia for worship, Aharat offered, Sainya with his soldiers, Amatma his ministers, Vahaya and the chariots, the elephants, the horses, or the men who carried the palanquin, Havishmatya, because of possessing a kamadenu, a cow that could supply everything, Tapadanaha, the great sage, whose only power was his austerity, or who was engaged in austerity. Srila Prabhupada's translation. The sage Jamadagni was engaged in great austerities in the forest, received the king very well, along with the king's soldiers, ministers, and carriers. He supplied all the necessities to worship these guests, where he possessed a Kamadenu cow that was able to supply everything. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The Brahma Samhita, would you like to read the purport? Yeah. Okay. The Brahma Samhita informs us that the spiritual world, and especially the planet, Goloka Vrindavan, where Krishna lives, is full of Sarabi cows. Sarabi, Apim, Palak, Yantam. The Sarabi cows is also called Kamadenu. Although Jamadagni possessed only one Kamadenu, he was able to get from it everything desirable. Thus, he was able to receive the king, along with the king's great number of followers, ministers, soldiers, animals, and palanquin carriers. When we speak of a king, we understand that he is accompanied by many followers. Jamadagni was able to receive all the king's followers properly and feed them sumptuously with food prepared in ghee. The king was astonished at how opulent Jamadagni was because of possessing only one cow, and therefore he became envious of the great sage. This was the beginning of his offense. Parashuram, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, killed Kartavirya Arjuna because Kartavirya Arjuna was too proud. One may possess unusual opulence in this material world, but if one becomes puffed up and acts whimsically, he will be punished by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the lesson to learn from this history in which Parashuram became angry at Kartavirya Arjuna and killed him and rid the entire world of Kshatriya 21 times. Om Gyana Timirandasya Gana Gana Shalakaya Chakshu Omalatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Stapitam Yena Bhutale, Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Vedati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakama, Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha, Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghmeta, Tam Tam Sajivam, Sadvaitam Sarabhutam, Parijana Sahitam, Krishna Chaitanya Devam, Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalutam, Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu, Dinabandhu Jagatpate, Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute, Tapta Kanchana Gorangi, Radhe Vrindavaneshwari, Vrishabhanusta Devi, Anamami Hari Pre. Panchakalpa Turubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasvadutale, Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tinamane, Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine, Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashatya Deshatarine. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vasvadutale, Shrimati Bhakti Tirtha Swami Tinamane, Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Shitatmane, Shigora Karna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Tinamane. Hare Krishna, Tanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Dasari Shikora Bhakta Vrinda, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare. So I'll read the translation once more for Ekavira Prabhu. The sage Jamadagni, who was engaged in great austerities in the forest, received the king very well, along with the king's soldiers, ministers, and carriers. He supplied all the necessities to worship these guests, for he possessed a Kamadhenu cow and was able to supply everything. Haribol Ekavira Prabhu.
Can I see one of the books?
Yes.
Thank you. Hi, Bo. Thank you again for inviting us, and thank you for being here. All of the wonderful devotees and the beautiful faces that we're seeing, and we really, really appreciate having your association at the Bhakti Center. I'm smiling because when we were actually offering pranams and asking for to be used as instruments to share something from the Bhagavatam and learn for our own self-purification and hopefully something we can you can take from it and apply in your own lives. I was just thinking about when we were getting ready to chant the Maha Mantra, and we didn't chant the Pancha Tattva mantra. And I remember goodness, what's her name? She's in Vrindavan, our friend that had a brain tumor, went to Vrindavan, was in Mayapur, Srimati.
Oh, Srimati, yes.
Yes, she was giving a seminar and she asked us one kirtaniya, really wonderful kirtaniya. And we were in Mayapur and she said, would you please lead kirtan? It was the second kirtan. And then he started chanting the Maha Mantra. She stopped the kirtan. She said, stop. And the devotee turned and looked. And she said, never begin chanting the Maha Mantra without getting the blessings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by chanting the Panchatattva Maha Mantra. And especially in Sri Dham Mayapur. And so I say that because this is very important for persons who are followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who are engaged in the Sankirtan movement and sharing the Maha Mantra, because there's many types of kirtan which goes on throughout the entire world, and we relish those kirtans. At the same time, those followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, followers of Srila Prabhupada, are actually following in their footsteps, and this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Kirtan, as Srila Vishnu Nath Chakravarti Thakur expresses in his prayer, Shri Guru Rastakam. So anyway, thank you so much again.
So now you'll chant the Panchatattva.
Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasri
Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Haribol.
So in this particular verse, there are two personalities that are spoken about primarily, Jamadagni and Kartaviryarjuna. That's two actually great personalities, of course, Jamadagni being the father of Parshuram, the Shaktivesha avatar. And please forgive me, I'm looking at the Bhagavatam now. I'll first touch on this personality of Kartaviryarjuna. Kartaviryarjuna was a very, very powerful personality. It's explained that he once formed a dam in the river in India and upset Ravana, and then eventually engaged in a short battle and even arrested Ravana. He was so powerful. And he obviously performed austerities in the past. And also Jamadagni in this particular verse is expressed that he is engaged in his austerities and was residing in the forest. And it was a very, very simple sage, simple personality. I'm going to turn that off, please. And one thing about Kartaviryarjuna, he was a king also. And in his particular role as a king, as sometimes we see in leaders that take on these particular roles, there's a tendency to develop some pride from assuming that responsibility, because there's so much, so many accolades that comes from these great roles. And so there's a common tendency for one who engages in pious activities and then also takes on these leadership roles. And that is, the one attains this exalted position as a king. And then eventually there's a pride that tends to come. And then there's the offense of others, which takes place in this particular pastime here. And then eventually the fall. And as there's the old adage that expresses that pride cometh before the fall. And so it's explained here that Kartaviryarjuna was envious of Jamadagni, because Jamadagni here, imagine this king is traveling in the forest and then he comes upon this sage, and the only thing he pretty much has is this cow, but yet he can actually feed all of these guests and feed them not just something very simple, but just a sumptuous feast. And he was just amazed at the sight of this. And so therefore he developed this enviousness of Jamadagni. And it's an interesting, how could I say, dichotomy in that, or these two different personalities, both performing austerities to develop their prowess or their qualities. One being a king and the other one being a great sage. And Jamadagni in the forest, although he has this Kamadani cow, and which can actually provide anything that he desires. What did he desire? He's in the forest. He's still a simple sage, even though he has this cow. What does he desire? The nature of his desire is pure, so pure in that he can have a son, Parishuram, the incarnation of the Lord, Shaktivesha incarnation. Whereas the other personality, he develops this prowess, but then becomes envious. And this is a very important point, especially for me. I said, oh, wow, this is a verse that I'm giving envy on envy, one developing these characteristics. And there's, again, another adage that there are two types of people in the world, basically. There are givers and takers. And in this particular verse here, we have these two personalities, Jamadagni and Kartavirarjuna, which represent these two general characteristics, the givers and takers. Jamadagni representing the personalities that are givers, and Kartavirarjuna representing those that tend to be takers. And why is it that persons who develop these have this tendency to have the taking mentality? And that's because of what is the Ishvaraham Maham Bogi. Because we develop we have these qualities, and we start getting the results of our pious activities. There's a tendency, without understanding that we do these things for the pleasure of the Lord, that these things are for our pleasure. And so therefore, there's this development of the envy. And so on the other side, you have Jamadagni, the giver. And this is giving mood manifest right here in this particular verse. And it's interesting because this quality of envy, which we'll talk about a little bit later, how to actually overcome these qualities of envy, this quality of enviousness, is also given here in this particular verse and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Kartavirarjuna showing the quality of envy, and Jamadagni showing how to actually overcome the quality of envy. It's an amazing, it's simple, but yet amazing particular verse and purport. And it's so relevant because who actually has the qualities of envy? Practically, I have the quality of envy. Many of us, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have the quality of envy. And at the same time, we've been so fortunate by the devotees of the Lord who is engaged in the Sankirtan movement to actually help us to overcome this particular quality of envy by giving us this process of devotional service. And so I'm actually going to Vraja Lila speak about some of the qualities of Jamadagni. And then we'll come back later and touch on these points, that main point.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you mentioned Kirtav Arjuna, yeah, this a great king. Yeah. And we know that the king, they have all these amazing qualities, even to be a king. And actually for him to be in the Srimad Bhagavatam, you know, that's pretty special. He's a king. And his name has appeared in the Vedic scriptures, which means that he has an important message that he's teaching everyone. And so what was the message of this great king is that he thought he was supposed to be the most opulent, because that's some of the characteristics of being a king, right? When somebody has power, and they have power over others, then they think everything is supposed to be, I'm supposed to be the one to own everything. That's just the nature of persons that are in that hierarchy. And so he was in that hierarchy of being this king, ruler of kingdoms and ruling people. And therefore, when he came across this little skinny sage in the woods, you know, just kind of meditating, and having this cow and this person being able to, you know, feed all of these, as Prabhupada says in the purport. I love the word for word translation. Prabhupada says that there were, let's see, elephants. Just imagine, there was elephants, there were horses, there were people carrying the palanquins. Yeah, so plus his soldiers, so he had this entourage of persons and all these animals, and Jamadagni was able to feed them from this one cow. So this, of course, this was going to disturb Jamadagni, Karta Arjuna. Why is that? Because we understand Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj has told us about the weeds that are there in one's devotional life, in a person, in a jiva, in a person that is in the material world. And he explains that there are these 6 different types of weeds that we may have. And one of those weeds is called jiva himsa. Jiva himsa is killing animals or living entities and envy of others. So this jiva himsa, Bhaktisiddhanta tells us, is one of those obstacles on the path of devotional service. And so not only was this king just like infused with this jiva himsa, he had all this greed, right? He had what we say in Sanskrit labha. He had greed, and because for him, he was to be the person that had all the material opulence. He just couldn't understand that this material opulence could be there in someone else. And that is the obstacle that's there for all conditioned souls. Conditioned souls, we tend to think that, those persons that specifically those that don't have any awareness about bhakti, at least we've been given this beautiful, wonderful opportunity to enter into this path and to learn from the acharyas and learn from Srila Prabhupada and our respective spiritual masters about these different aspects of character building, of who we're supposed to be. Srila Radhanath Maharaj, he explains like that in this path of bhakti, that is so very important to understand character development, who we are and who we're becoming as we unfold on the path of bhakti. So this king, he had all of these different weeds. He had pratishtha, his desire for fame and high position, and who he is. He's a king, and he's great, and he's wonderful. And we see that here as we are living in this world of conditioned reality. The world of conditioned reality is, we see that people that have power, when they think they have power, they're in the illusion of having power, and they appear to have power, that these persons, they tend to, with this power, as I was sharing earlier, over others, they tend to infuse other people to think that they have power under those people of power over. And so, this is kind of a little play on words, in the sense that people that they're easily confused, very easily confused by those personalities that in the hierarchy that have power over others. And so this sage, though, he's giving us this example, Jamadagni. He wasn't so much disturbed by, he was to some degree disturbed, because we're told, as the story goes on, such an amazing story for us, that of course he was so disturbed by this king wanting his cow and wanting to take this cow away, this amazing cow. And so he then, of course, we hear in the pastime how his son Parshuram, then Parshuram is going to act. He's the one that's going to, perform this action that we learn later that his father, being a Brahmana, will actually speak to him about the action that he performed. However, what's important in understanding about this sage Jamadagni, because as we listen to this pastime, we hear, I believe it was some earlier verses, we hear how, he himself had anger, right? He himself expressed anger with his, about his wife. And we learned that, oh, wow, here's this great sage. He's so renounced, he's living in the woods. And yet this is a part of his pastime. This is a part of his life, that he becomes disturbed and really, really disturbed. I mean, as you hear the pastime about how he wanted his wife killed, beheaded, actually. And so it's important to understand that these human tendencies are there, even in these really great personalities. Jamadagni is definitely, he was a saintly person. He was worshiping the Lord. And so, we tend to think that when somebody is serving, that they may not have that these qualities, like this quality we hear of anger, that actually was there in Jamadagni also. Just as with this king. So this king, he was angry. He became angry when he saw that Jamadagni had this opulence, and he thought he's not supposed to have it. And the same quality was there in Jamadagni, in previous parts of his life, in previous parts of his story, that when he thought his wife was not being chaste, he also became angry. So what's the solution, to the fact that this kind of emotion can be there? So we want to understand emotion in terms of when it's used for Krishna and when it's not. That's really, really key, because emotions is a part of the living entity as we're here in the material world. And part of the conditioned mentality is that these emotions are expressed in terms of I, me, and mine. This is for me. I want it. I'm to control it, as we see by the example of the king. However, emotions that are utilized in service to the Lord, emotions that are used, as we will see, Parashuram, of course, he's an incarnation, as Ekavira Prabhus said, but he used this emotion of anger. Why? It was a purpose for this, so that he could rid, all these kings that had this mentality of thinking that they're in this hierarchy to have power over others. And so very briefly, this brings me to this point about the cow, this Kamadenu cow, because this whole pastime is around this amazing, cow this one cow has brought this sage all of this opulence, right? And this one cow, this one Kamadenu cow is giving us this beautiful, beautiful pastime in the 9th canto. So this helps us to understand the importance of the cows. And we hear there are many, many beautiful quotes, and I just wanted to quote a few of Krishna, of course, and his relationship with the cows. First of all, in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th canto, in the opulence of the absolute, Krishna says, of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. And among cows, I am Sarabi, right? And we read that the Kamadenu is actually called also Sarabi. So therefore, we can understand that the personality of Godhead was there in the form of this cow, right? So the Sarabi cow. And Prabhupada then, in this translation, it's explained that the Sarabi cow is givers of abundant milk. So therefore, we understand, in this purport, Prabhupada said that the king was fed, everyone was fed, with ghee, which meant that this cow produced so much milk that so much ghee could be made. I mean, if we could just imagine this, that one cow we here in Gita Nagari, there's quite a few cows here. And it takes at least, for one cow to produce ghee from the milk, which will turn into butter, which will then produce the milk, you might get, and I got to say this with some caution because, we have our experts and, in Gita Nagari. So I'm just like kind of a little bit speculating here, guys. But in any case, I know you don't get that much ghee. I know that. I've seen it, there isn't that much ghee that a person can get from the milking of one cow. However, if you have many cows, like we do here in Gita Nagari, I think there's something like 80 something cows, then yes, we can get ghee from the cow.
we can get enough ghee to care for the deities and maybe even to, give to others. However, this one cow. So Krishna, he explains to us that these cows are glorious. That this Sarabi cow, this Kamadhenu cow that the sage was able to acquire due to his austerities. He performed austerities, and so he got this Kamadhenu cow. And there's a couple of verses that are just so beautiful that I just wanted to share. It says, all glories to Krishna, the son of Mother Yashoda, the cowherd boy Gopal, Govinda, who gives pleasure to the cows. All glories to the conqueror of Cupid, Lord Hari, who takes away all inauspiciousness, who is unlimited and the awarder of liberation. So we know that the inauspicious activity of Karta Arjuna, the king, was really it was taken away by Krishna in that incarnation of Parshuram. And so this was an inauspicious activity that he performed, this Karta of Arjuna. However, Krishna there as Sarabi, Parshuram as the son of Jamadagni was able to take away the inauspiciousness of that activity. Another verse that comes from the Brahma Samhita, Prabhupada says, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desires, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds and thousands of Lakshmi gopis. And I can say, we've been living here in Gitanagara since 1995. And of course, one of Ekavira Prabhus' services was to take care of the cows. And I can really say that I have seen personally how the cows, if you care for them nicely, if you really protect them, if you really give them love, that their reciprocation is unlimited. I mean, there is a thing, there's something in the material world now that's called cow therapy, right? Cow therapy, where people where people come here, they even come here to Gitanagari, just to pet a cow, just to brush a cow, just to nurture a cow, because they know that this therapy, yes, can ease any kind of emotional affliction that a person may have. And we have seen here, even in Gitanagari, sometimes people may come and they may be troubled, in the mind, because when you come out of material world, it's as we all know, there's so many different ways that we can be distracted in the material world. And when someone comes here and we see that they have this nature or something, not maybe their nature, but just their mental condition might be a little unstable, one of the things that we recommend is just go and brush the cows. Just brush the cows. Just go and, hug a cow. Just brush the cow. I remember myself, at certain periods of time, I'm scared of the cows, to be honest with you, because these guys are big. They're huge, And so, however, there was a period when I just had this amazing desire. I got to get close to the cow. I got to get close. So I went to our cow, I guess what we call, I don't know, I want to say that he might be one of the Lakshmi or goddesses or whatever. He takes care of the cow. That might be a little far out to say, but anyway, he's like that to me. He's just so amazing in how he cares for the cows. And I went and I said, I gotta get close to the cow. And he said, okay, no problem. Gave me brush, just brush the cow, just brush. And then I saw within like 2 days or something, I was developing this affection, amazing affection for this cow that I was brushing. And then I was looking at all the other cows, and then I was seeing, like, I was becoming just so conscious. So they awakened. These cows have the ability to awaken the consciousness that may be lying dormant, that is connected with Krishna. And then the last thing that I'll say, and then we'll turn this back over to Ekavira Prabhu, is this verse that says, may that Lord of the cows be satisfied by us. Who is Indra when compared to Krishna? Who is Indra when compared to Krishna? Krishna is the master of Indra. And yet he has appeared as the master of the cows. The supreme absolute truth has accepted a simple position as the keeper of the cows. And that was Jamadagni. He had a simple position of a sage to care for this Kamadhenu cow. And because he had that simple position, because he didn't have that hierarchy of power over his son, Parshuram, he came in and we know he just like, whoa, cut everybody's head off, He was just like, he just came and he did all the work. Jamadagni didn't have to do anything. And that's the secret of bhakti. The secret of bhakti is we don't really have to act, as long as we are, we need to act in that we need to make an endeavor. Of course, Krishna tells us that with the story, the pastime, the Damodar Lila, which is coming up to us so very soon, which we are so excited about. However, we know that if we simply absorb ourselves, as my dear friend Leela, she spoke this beautiful verse from the Bhagavad Gita on our Bhagavad Gita chat a few days ago, Bhagavad Gita 1864, I believe it is. If we simply just engage ourselves with thinking about Krishna as much as we can throughout the day, whatever is inauspicious, whomever may be thinking that they are a hierarchy of power over us, all this will be removed. It will definitely be removed. And this is coming from just accepting the simple position, like Krishna did of caring for the cows, the simple position of understanding that we are servants to the devotees and servants to the Lord. This is the key. At least this is the key I've found to trying to stay being a devotee. To trying to get the mercy is to have this humble mood. Not that I'm humble, not saying I'm humble. However, that's the mood, is to have a humble mood that I'm simply a servant serving to devotees. That's what we learn from Jamadagni. Lots of other things to learn from Jamadagni. In this verse, though, that's what we learn. Okay, Karapu.
Okay. We'll touch briefly on this point about the envy and the qualities and how they develop. And then I just wanted to share something because Jamadagni's personality in Gita Nagari that used to be here, and that was Mother Kalini. And so, yes, the qualities of envy. Lord Kapila actually expresses in the third canto that there are 4 basic stages of envy. And I'll simplify it. One is that we tend to think that we're better than others, superior to other people. And then when we think that we're superior to other people, and especially if we have a conflict with someone, then we want to avoid people. I just want to totally stay away from this person. And that's the actual quality of envy. And then that tends to fester and it develops into the more inimical attitude towards a person. Or like hate. It's a deeper attitude, basically. And so after we develop that inimical nature, then what happens after that? Then we tend to act on that particular attitude. And in our case, and we're as those aspiring to be devotees and those devotees, that we're encouraged to avoid this last point in all ways possible, and that's blaspheming the devotees, blasphemy. And so those are 4 basic stages of envy. And then in the 27th verse of the 29th chapter, Lord Kapila Dev expresses 2 simple ways. Well, first, he also expresses that we must see him or the Lord in each and everyone's heart. And then 2 practical things to do and acting in the manner in which we see the Lord in someone's heart. And that is through charitable gifts and attention, as well as through friendly behavior. And by viewing all to be alike, one should perpetuate me who abides in all creatures as their very self. And so if we actually develop this mood, we talked about Jamadagni having the characteristics of, or showing the characteristics of how to overcome this envy, seeing the Lord in the king's heart, receiving him faithfully, trying to please him. And then how did he actually try to please him? He tried to please him by serving him, and primarily by serving him facade. And so we're encouraged to give, especially give in charity like Lord Kapila Dev. And one is the greatest charity, giving Mahaprasadam in the holy name.
Nectar, Rupa Goswami,
Rupa
six loving
Goswami,
exchanges, right?
exactly.
Okay.
And so Vraja Lila is pointing at the clock. And so giving in charity and respecting others, and mainly being friendly to other people. And Srila Prabhupada even simplified it more, and he simplified it in each and every letter in which he sent out to everyone. And at the end of his letter, how did he sign it? What was his salutation? Your ever well wisher. Being the ever well wisher of all living entities is Srila Prabhupada simplifying the instructions of Rupa Goswami, the instructions of Lord Kapila Dev, by being the well-wisher of everyone, not only not envying anyone, but just desiring that everyone be happy and satisfied. And that's like the prayer of Prahlad Maharaj: let all the beings in the universe, especially those, even those who are envious, be satisfied, pacified. And I believe that with Janavi, she does the song Hari Om, which emphasizes that particular prayer. And so, and one thing, we talked about this quality of envy can, just by associating with the cows, this particular quality of envy, you can see it actually leaving your actual character just by associating with the cows.
Yeah.
Because the cows, they don't respond to the modes of passion, and what to speak of the mode of ignorance. You have to come up to the modes of goodness to actually come in contact with the cows. They just don't respond. I was trained to work with oxen by Balabhadra Prabhu. And they just don't respond to, anger. You have to develop a relationship and come up to the mode of goodness. And that takes me to another point. Mother Kolini, we had a particular cow, our own Sarabi. Her name was Vishaka. She gave one calf and then gave milk for over 12 years from that one calf. She just gave and gave and gave. And Mother Kalini, she would go down to the barn every morning and call out in the field, Vishaka, Vishaka, and Vishaka would just moo, moo, and she'd walk across the pasture and she'd come to the barn. She was just so happy to give this milk to her devotee, her associate, Mother Kaulini. And one time when Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was coming back from traveling in Africa, I was bringing him on the farm. Now I go to the farm every day. I'm driving onto the farm. So this morning, I'm bringing Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, who hadn't been in Gita Nagari for 6 months. And as we're coming on the farm, I says, Vishaka, look who's here. And Vishaka was on the side of the field. And I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen her do this before. She actually went down on her front legs and just bent down and put her head down like she was offering obeisances. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he said, look, Ekavira, that cow is offering obeisances to you. And I said, I come on the farm every day and she's never done that. It's not to me. So the Lord is in everyone's heart, in the cow's heart, in all of the living entities' heart. And so I wanted to share this particular pastime because it was quite relevant to our verse today, and to glorify the Kamadhenu, and all the glorious cows. Krishna is the cowherd boy and all of his friends.
And just in closing, because we are 2 minutes over our time. However, I was thinking, how does this practically apply? Because so many people are in the cities, they don't have cows, they don't have a cow, we're very, what do I do? So this verse is relevant because even if you don't physically have a cow, you can support those that do have cows. You can support those that are caring for the cows. And so I know in a Bhakti center, the devotees there, they get the milk from the cow. There's so many other places where they get the milk from the cows here in Gitanagari. And so we encourage everyone that it doesn't mean we have to physically take care of a cow. We aren't all going to be Jamadagni, and we aren't all going to be the cowherd boy here in Gitanagari. However, we can take shelter of the products from the cows, certain. I know there's a big thing going on with the vegans and the whatever. However, Prabhupada says in our theology, we respect the cows and we take the products of the cows. And so if you are able to, please take some products from the cow. Make ghee, take yogurt, whatever it may be. And if you're a vegan, just tell somebody else to do it. You may not do it, but let somebody else do it that might still, take products of the cow. So don't give up on cow care, cow protection. And we thank you very much.
Yes, and one other point, as far as being a well-wisher, Srila Prabhupada once he met someone on the street, and he said, "Good morning," and they responded, "Good morning." And the devotee asked him, "Why did you say good morning instead of Hare Krishna?" He said, "Because if I said Hare Krishna, they would have thought I was some, a strange person on the street. But I said good morning, and they responded in a favorable way, good morning." So being the well-wisher, Srila Prabhupada gave the practical example of being the well-wisher of someone and responding to a way or meeting someone according to their nature and being their well-wisher.
Okay, so we thank you. It's 8:04.
Sorry.
Our class usually ends at 8, and we normally would stop 10 minutes before to ask for any feedback, any questions, any additions, subtractions, whatever, some reflection. Maybe we have time for one reflection.
Good morning.
Hari.
Haribol, Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. It's so lovely to see you this morning. There's so many good points, particularly about this envy. I was interested in the topic of leadership, and then I think Vraja Lila, you mentioned about using emotion for Krishna, because to envy someone, it's to desire the qualities that they have. And I find myself desiring all of the qualities that you both have, but I love you both so much. And so is it enough when we glorify the qualities of another living being that we're just to do that, to dispel the envy in our heart? Because it just doesn't seem to stop. It's desire. And you see someone's good qualities and you're like, wow, yeah, I can use that. I really like that. And I'd like to develop that in myself. I mean, or maybe I'm just seeing like an endless, heart full of a heart full of endless desires of the qualities that someone else can have. But I think that it's important to acknowledge that and the need behind the desire of someone else's qualities before we can get rid of them. Otherwise, we're just pretending like, I don't have any envy. I don't desire anyone else's qualities, which is, not helpful. So I don't know if that made sense, but my point is how do we like acknowledge it and kind of dovetail it a little bit before it can actually go away?
Yeah, that's a very, very wonderful and relevant question. It's really not, it's not necessarily a bad thing to desire to have qualities of another person. Our whole process is to develop qualities of the great souls, the Vaishnavacharyas, and we appreciate those qualities and want to develop those qualities that they have. At the same time, we don't want to replace those personalities. So we want to actually follow those personalities. We want to follow in their footsteps. We want to serve in a way that they can actually be pleased. And so when we see, as a matter of fact, when we see the quality of envy manifesting from our heart, it's important to develop respect for someone by appreciating those qualities in those persons which we can learn from. And I guarantee you, if we look in everyone, anyone, I mean, I don't care who it is, or even animals, we can see qualities which we can appreciate. No question about it. There's a certain pastime where there was a person that went to his spiritual master and asked for initiation. And then the spiritual master said, well, you go out and you find someone that is lower than you, lower than you, and bring them back, and then I'll initiate you. And the person was thinking, that's no problem. I'll give you 1 week. He said, 1 week? I don't need a week. He's thinking, I can do that in a few minutes. I go out and find somebody lower than me. And so he went out and he went to the Holy Dham, and he saw a street sweeper, and he said, I can take this person here back. And then he thought about it. He said, wait a minute, this person is a resident of the Holy Dham. He's not lower than me. This is crazy that I even thought that. So wait a minute, let me see if I can find an animal maybe. And I'll make a long story short. And he saw a dog, and he's like, I take this dog back. And then thought about it, it's like, wow, the dog has such a loyal quality. If I had the quality of loyalty that this dog has, I wouldn't be here in this material world. And so then he saw so many different things. And so when he went back to his spiritual master, he said to the spiritual master, I went and I saw all of these entities, and I thought it would be easy. But when I looked and I really thought about it, I couldn't find anyone that was lower than me. And the spiritual master said, okay, now you're ready to be initiated. And so giving up the quality of envy, it's a process. And that process requires us to be introspective, to actually look into the other persons and see those qualities that are admirable. So we first acknowledge the envy. We have to understand that envy is there. If we're in the material world, we're not pure devotees, we're not Nitya Siddhas, and I know there's great devotees in our midst, but we acknowledge the envy first. And then we understand that envy and pride, they're basically two sides of the same coin. And when we see the pride manifest, we understand that, hey, envy is there in my heart. When we're proud, of ourselves, our achievement, especially in the mood of, as Lord Kapila Dev expressed, when we think that we're better than someone else. And then we change the channel when we see that envy. I know Vraja Lila used to say, and this is something that took place when Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj departed from the planet. And we both were really, really having a difficult time. And so Vraja Lila, she took different courses. And one of those courses was a course in gratitude. And so every time you would see Vraja Lila, persons would ask her, how are you doing? And prior to that, she would say, I'm really not doing well. I'm morose, I'm struggling. It's really difficult. But after taking this course, she said, I'm grateful. And over a period of time, she actually became grateful. It wasn't so in the beginning, but she was changing the channel.
So I want to add one thing to that gratitude, because that gratitude actually really it manifested from from not knowing what to say, what to keep saying. I'm sad or this or that or whatever, it came from that for sure, saying I'm grateful. However, that gratitude came from hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam, hearing Vraja Prabhus speak the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Kunti Devi is crying because Krishna is leaving. And I remember so well when I read, when Vraja Prabhu, if any of you have heard him, he speaks Bhagavatam and it pierces your heart. So when my heart was pierced with Krishna leaving and Kunti crying, I realized Krishna left. Krishna, he also left, Krishna leaves. And something I knew, I knew it theoretically. For the first time, though, it actually penetrated my heart that yes, Krishna leaves. And so his devotees, of course, leaves. So from there, I started understanding about gratitude. Like, okay, I'm just grateful. That's what I would say to people. I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful. And I didn't want to cut Ekavira off. I just wanted to share that because that was so important to me. It's so important to me to really know that we can't, like, even with envy. And Lila, I want to be a little esoteric with you. Whatever qualities you see in Ekavira Prabhu and myself, it's because you really have it yourself. And you may not be aware of it yet. Maybe they're dormant, or maybe you don't acknowledge them, but they're there in you, right? I want to say that you have these qualities. We all have these qualities because in our pure state, we're spiritual people, right? We're not really any of these external things. So having said that, we got to be careful. That's the same thing with this king. He thought he was so great. So we could think we have these qualities and then we can fall because we get puffed up with pride. So we got to be so very careful, to think that we have, whatever qualities. It's best to just keep thinking, I'm a servant. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that. What? I'm just a servant. Otherwise, this propensity, to have desires for worship and pratishtha, fame, adoration, it's just so strong. It's so strong. So we got to be really careful. However, I also wanted to add the last thing is that we don't want to forget the main thing is for us to be chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So whenever we feel some envy of someone, we just and I'm not just saying, I'm not saying this in a theoretical sense or in a way of being fanatical. I'm saying if we feel the envy immediately, call in Krishna, Krishna, take it away. Even if we can't say Hare Krishna, Krishna, just Krishna, please.
Time, we have to be ready in the way that Krishna takes it away.
Exactly. We got to be ready because Krishna can do. He's funny. Krishna's funny.
That's why I was giving you some of these little tidbits, so to speak, Leela. First of all, acknowledge the envy, understand that it's there, and Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj used to express, instead of fault finding, love find. Appreciate the qualities in someone else. And actually, Bhakti Vinod Thakur expressed that when we express appreciation for another person, especially a Vaishnava, we tend to take on those qualities. And so as we take on these particular qualities, it's like what do you call them, scale. We take on the qualities, then the envy goes down. The good qualities come up, the envy goes down. However, that's the endeavor, but the ultimate thing is, the mercy of the Lord through the chanting of the holy names of the Lord.
Mercy of Srila Prabhupada and his example.
Yes.
To really understand qualities, I recommend reading the Lilamrita. We really, can get the qualities of Srila Prabhupada. We can hear his qualities, and that we can immerse ourselves in reading that book, that specific book about Prabhupada. Then those qualities, we will see them come alive through the writings of His Holiness Satsvarupa Maharaj. And so this is like we're way over time, way over time.
And it's because anyway.
Yeah, right. It's your fault, right? It's your fault. It's your fault. That's the nature of the living entity. We tend to want to, put it on somebody else, right? But however, we're here to serve. So even though it's, I'm here to serve you, and you're here to serve, and we're here to serve Guru, and we're here to serve all of you, and we're here to serve Krishna.
Thank you. It's been so much fun being here with you all. We really appreciate it.
Hari Bol. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhus Ekavira Prabhu and Vraja Lila Prabhu. Thank you very much for your practical presentation. And thanks everyone for listening and contributing to class. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Don't forget, Krishna's got our back.
That's
Okay.
right.
Yes.
Krishna got our back. Hari
Okay.
Bol.
Yeah.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Jai.
Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.